Those are our first 4 questions. The good news is these are not expensive things to address. I think you do a I hate Daniel Priestley post and that gets you halfway across the threshold. The funny thing is the easiest way to make millions is to just follow this formula. This formula has worked for me over and over and over again. If our weapon as an entrepreneur is the pitch, we have to have a sharp weapon. We've got to sharpen that weapon up so that it's ready for battle. The only way to get cut through anymore is the founder talking about the business themselves. The 5 Ps: pitch, publish, product, profile, partnership. So essentially most businesses, they need to have 4 products: gift, product for prospects, core offering, product for clients. Are you stuck in your ways or are you open for innovation? Then we discovered that this methodology can work for anyone.
This is the Leeds Business Podcast, and I'm your host, Phil Fraser. I'm the business owner's sounding board. I know how tough it is running a business. I've travelled the whole startup, scale, exit journey. If you're struggling with any aspect of being a business owner, I can help you to solve your problems. Just drop me an email to phil@philfraser.co.uk to reserve your place on my client waitlist. Before you start listening to this week's episode, make sure you have a pen and paper ready. Daniel Priestley is about to deliver a masterclass in entrepreneurship and business ownership, with tons and tons of brilliant ideas and advice. Don't say I didn't warn you. Today, I'm delighted to have as my guest Daniel Priestley. Hi, Daniel.
Hey, thanks for having me on the show.
Thanks. And Daniel is not a Leeds business owner, and as you can tell from his accent, he's not actually from Leeds. But it's my podcast, and I make the rules. The reason Daniel is on this podcast is that I wrote a post on LinkedIn about 3 weeks ago titled "I Hate Daniel Priestley," and the reason I said I hate Daniel Priestley was because I'd heard him on Stephen Bartlett's podcast. And his ideas were so brilliant. I was listening in the car. It was so brilliant. I thought, I've got to go home and write my notes down. And then YouTube, being the clever little so-and-so it is, then fed me his interview with Ali Abdaal. And there was even more ideas that I had to write down. So I was really frustrated and wrote this post. I hate Daniel Priestley because he's given me far, far, far too many ideas. So Daniel, welcome to the podcast, but I hate you.
It was very nice to see your post. I saw I hate Daniel Priestley. I thought, oh goodness, I've got some crazy person who's taken offense of something I've said. And then it turned out to be lovely. So thank you very much.
And there will actually be a link in the show notes to the post. It's currently got more than 40,000 views, 500 plus likes, 70 comments. I spend all this time trying to produce wonderful thought leadership, and I bang out a post sitting in the gym post session at David Lloyd, and it goes viral. So I'm giving up. I'm giving up on creating thought leadership stuff. So Daniel, for those who don't know Daniel Priestley, he's a multi-award-winning author of 6 business books. He's funded and founded multiple 6- and 7-figure businesses, and he's just a brilliant business guru.
I haven't done many 6-figure businesses. They're all been 7- and 8-figure businesses.
Oh, sorry. You'd have to update your LinkedIn profile. It says 6.
Does it say 6? Oh,
I
my
think
goodness.
so, or maybe I've written it down wrong. Anyway. So Daniel, give us the basic start for how did all this happen, and where are you now?
Yeah, so I've got a group of 8 different companies that we run, a couple of software companies, a group of agencies, a publishing business. So essentially, I've got this lovely group of companies that we run, global businesses, clients in 150 plus countries. We've won Entrepreneur of the Year, Scale Up of the Year. We just won a major award as we were finalist for Business of the Year for the British Data Awards. So really great group of companies. 20 years ago, I started my first company in Australia. I'd been working for a mentor for 2 years, from 19 to 21. I was employee number 3 at a startup. Learned a lot. Went off and started my own company. Ended up building a business that became a 10 million revenue business in the first 3 years. So it was a very fast growth business. And then ever since, I've been bitten by the entrepreneurial bug. I love starting companies. I love scaling businesses. I've bought and sold businesses in my business career. So I've got a real passion for entrepreneurship, for developing entrepreneurs who stand out, scale up, and make a positive impact through business.
And all of that is within the umbrella of the Dent Group. Is that right?
Sort of, yes. Dent holds the training and development business and the group of agencies, and then the software businesses are separate to them.
Right. Okay. Okay. And it's Dent. We're going to focus on Dent specifically because obviously, this is a business podcast. We want to do business learning and stuff like that. Let's start with a simple question, but really complicated question. A lot of my listeners have their own businesses, and as entrepreneurs, we're always thinking about startups, but they've got their own businesses. What would be the first thing you would say to all of them to go and do tomorrow morning to improve their business?
So zooming out first, the first thing I normally start with is this idea that we're living in very strange and different times, that we're going through a massive transformation as a society. I actually call it an empire shift, that we're going from the industrial age, the industrial revolution, geographically based businesses that define themselves by being in a geography, to a new type of business, which is digital, and it can look after customers anywhere in the world, and it can have an employee or team member anywhere in the world. And ultimately, the first thing is to recognize that you're either going to be part of the industrial revolution mindset, the industrial revolution style traditional business, or you're going to make a shift into this kind of like entrepreneurial business that's global, that runs on media, technology, intellectual property. And you got to make a choice. Do I want to do that? Do I want to participate in this exciting times that we're in, or do I want to try and cling to the rocks of what I've got? I think obviously I'm the way that I'm phrasing it, I'm very much biased that I want people to have these amazing businesses that can be anywhere in the world, that can be exciting, scalable, saleable. And I believe that in every traditional business, there's intellectual property that could scale. I believe that in every traditional business, there's media assets and software assets that could be developed. So I'm a big fan of starting with this question. What kind of business do you want to be in, and what do you want to have a lifestyle business? Do you want to have a performance business, or do you want to be stuck with a traditional business? And I want to challenge people to make the most of these times that we're in. So step one is if you don't buy into that idea at the beginning, then I would say, well, don't do anything different, right? Like if you want the traditional business, I'm not your guy. I'm going to annoy you and constantly challenge your thinking. So step one is, do you even want to go on that journey with me in the first place?
And I know one of the things that is applicable to this that you talk about a lot is your CAOS theory. So explain that, because that's applicable to startups as well as existing businesses as well, isn't it?
Yeah, so CAOS stands for concept, audience, offer, sales. Once someone says, yes, I want to change my business or adapt my business or start a new business, then we go through CAOS as our first 4 steps. So not chaos spelt correctly, CAOS spelt CAOS. So concept is developing a concept that you're passionate about, that solves a big problem with intellectual property, and that people are willing to pay for. So we want to find something that fits within that. We want to define something called an origin, mission, and vision statement. So where are we from? Where are we going? What are we doing right now? We want to define things like the values of the business, and we want to kind of look at what kind of market we want to serve globally. So that's one of the first things we might do with our concept. Audience is about capturing people's attention. It's about getting people to signal that they're interested in this concept. It used to be the case that people would develop a product and then try and sell it to an audience. The best thinking in the entrepreneurial space at the moment is develop an audience and then develop the product for the audience. So build an audience first and then come up with something that the audience wants. This is a bit of an about face to how we used to do it. We can see lots of examples of this. If you look at Ryan Reynolds, the famous Hollywood actor, he's got 20 million followers on his social media profile, and then he finds products that his audience would be interested in. When I launch businesses, I launch with something basic like a waiting list to see if people are interested directionally in what we're doing. And then once they say that they're interested directionally in something, we then refine it for them and build a product for them. So audience first, then offer. So offer is where we talk to enough customers to understand their problems and their goals and what they're trying to achieve and the outcomes that they're looking for. We package up an offer, and then we're looking for an efficient way of selling that. So that's a sales system, a way of making sales. So those are our first 4 questions. The good news is these are not expensive things to address. These are thinking problems, not spending problems. So even if you gave me millions of dollars, I would leave that sitting on the shelf before we do all the thinking, right? So I'm going to be spending a lot of time figuring out the market with concept, audience, offer, sales. I'm not going to spend much money. I'm not going to set up CRM systems, or I'm not going to invest into ad campaigns or hiring lots of people until I've got my CAOS clear.
Okay, there's a couple of things. I mean, there's loads of stuff in there. There's a couple of things you mentioned I want to pull on, and one is the waiting list, and one is the audience. So, we're not Ryan Reynolds, we're not Kim Kardashian, we haven't got millions and millions. What David Beckham? We haven't got millions of followers. How do we? How does a normal Joe on the street build an audience to then find a product?
Well, mate, you did one post that got 40,000 views on LinkedIn, so you must know something about this. I think you do a "I hate Daniel Priestley" post, and that gets you halfway across the threshold. Look, I've got to give you the honest answers here, right? So I wish there was a sexy answer, but there's not. It's really gritty. The truth about entrepreneurship is a lot of it is sexy from a distance, but up close, it's pretty rough going. Every time I've ever launched a new product or service, I do stuff like send 3,000 direct messages to people. Every single one of the social media platforms allows you to search people based on their interests and based on hashtags and people that they follow already. I use those as cues for who might be interested in my product or service. And I will send people what's called a cold direct message, where I just simply say, for example, I might say, "Hi, Phil. Over the last 5 years, we've been successfully running campaigns called scorecard marketing campaigns. We've really perfected it. We've generated over 90,000 leads using this method. If you're interested in finding out what we've learned, I'm going to be running a small introduction event for 45 minutes on Zoom. It's free to attend, and I can share with you what we learned from 5 years worth of marketing campaigns and 90,000 leads that we generated. Here's the link if you want to join the Zoom call." So I might send out 3,000 of those invites, right? Disgusting, right? Horrible. But the truth is that you either throw money at the problem or time and creativity at the problem. In the early days of business, throwing money at the problem is counterproductive, because money, when you try and run ads, for example, it only really throws fuel on a fire if a fire is burning. It's not very good at figuring out what works. It's good at amplifying what works. So in the early days, I want to do the slow process of coming up with multiple different ways of describing what I do, and then seeing what sticks. So I might come up with 10 different ways of introducing that idea to people, and I might send out batches of 150 cold DMs to people and say, "Are you interested in this?" Now, what's your alternative? Your alternative is content. You could create a lot of content every week. That's great if it gets traction. But if you don't have an audience already, if you don't have followers already, it's going to be slow going. So I'm a big, I have this saying, which is kick the door off the hinges. Kick the door off the hinges means stop looking for the easy way. Stop looking for the handle. The door to success doesn't have a handle. You just have to ram your shoulder against it. So I'm a big believer that the early days of business, you have to kick the door down.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. It's sending DMs is the digital version of cold door knocking.
Cold calling.
It's cold. I mean, my second ever job was selling ad space on the phone. And we had to make 60 phone calls a day.
Yeah, the beauty of today with cold DMs is you can send 300 cold DMs in a day. It's easier than doing 60 calls.
Oh yeah.
So people just don't want to do the stuff that's not sexy.
Yeah.
Essentially there's direct power and indirect power. Direct power is where you directly go after something and make it happen. Indirect is like you do nice, pretty things that attract the right people and all of that stuff. Indirect power comes later, but businesses start through direct power.
Yeah.
You have to basically take the path of least resistance that makes you feel stupid and rejected and disgusting for sending a stranger a message, but ultimately that's what gets a business going in the early days.
Brilliant. Love it. Love it. So lesson number one, it's bloody hard work. Let's go back a step again. Waiting lists. I love this concept when you explained it on Stephen Bartlett's podcast. So we've done all this cold calling, and we think we've got an idea. Talk me through this idea of waiting lists, because I actually love it.
Yeah. So for the first part, I would never ever message someone and ask them to buy something. Right. That I think is a bridge too far. So we have to ask them to do something that is a minimal effort step. So if I was to say to you, "Hey, I've got this interesting software that we're launching. It's going to be £50 a month. Here's the link to sign up." That's not going to work. But if I said to you, "We've got this software that we're launching. It's going to do this, this, and this. It's not ready yet, but join the waiting list, and I'll send you all the information as soon as it's ready, and I'll give you some free codes as soon as they're available, so you can try it out. If you're interested in X, Y, and Z, then join the waiting list." That is a really powerful thing, because people only have to be slightly interested in order to join a waiting list. They have to be very, very, very interested in order to buy something. So if you were to basically say that people buy things when they feel at least 90% sure, people join waiting lists when they feel 10% sure, that means that you're just going to get a lot of people who kind of signal that they're somewhat interested in what you do. And that way you've got an opportunity to work with them and warm them up. You've also got an opportunity to create something called demand and supply tension. So let's say I can get 1,000 people onto a waiting list for a new product, but there's only going to be 100 of them available to begin with. I can say we've got 1,000 people on the waiting list, but we only have 100 test beta users available. So if you'd like to join, be one of the first 100. That creates a little bit of an oomph, a little bit of a rush to the exit. So it's a good way to do it. So I see, for example, businesses that want to make a change in the business, and they do it in secret behind closed doors. They don't tell anyone they're making this change. So let's just take a very traditional business. You say we've got a dry cleaning business, and they think of opening a second location, and they kind of go and look at all the sites, and they try and negotiate leases and all of that sort of stuff. Only once they've got all of that stuff ready do they then tell people, "Oh, we're opening." I would say as soon as you know you're going to do a second site, start promoting in 3 different areas and saying, "We're looking at creating a new dry cleaning service in this area. If you would like to be one of our first customers, join the registration of interest or join the waiting list, and we'll give you some vouchers to come in and try our service for the first time once we open." And then let's say you did a waiting list for 3 different locations. You now know which location's hottest. You now know you can now basically get people to signal their interest, and find out which location gets the most people for the same amount of effort. When people join a waiting list, I always ask them to answer at least 4 or 5 questions as well. I'm collecting data. So I might say, what price point or which features are you interested in? I might say, what are you hoping to achieve? What have you tried that didn't work? So I'm asking some questions. I'm always asking questions when people join, because I want that data so I can make a better product choice.
Again, it sounds so simple. You're actually saying to people, "Tell me what you want, and then I'll go away and build it," rather than building it and going, "Ta-da! Look what I've built." And it's interesting actually, because I regularly talk at schools and sixth forms and things like that, and after they've said, when they do questions, after they've said, what car do you drive, how much was your watch, how much did you sell your business for, when we get past those, it's often what business should I go into? Should I do Bitcoin or day trading or something they've seen, something like that. And I always say, find a problem and then find a solution to it, and then find out if people are willing
Spot
to
on.
pay for it, and find out if they're willing to pay for it on a
Yeah.
regular basis,
Yeah.
then go away and build it. Then go away and build it. And you can see them you can see their eyes going, oh shit, that sounds like hard work. I want to do Bitcoin or be an influencer.
I just want to buy a Bitcoin. Yeah. Just want to buy a Bitcoin and then be done with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the funny thing is the easiest way to make millions is to just follow this formula. This formula has worked for me over and over and over again. I build multi-million pound business after multi-million pound business because I ask people what they want and I build for them what they want. I only build stuff if we've got thousands of people who want it. And if we don't, we kill the idea pretty quickly. If they want it in blue, we build it in blue. If they want it in purple, we build it in purple. Whatever's important, we build what the customer wants. There's no great secret to how multi-million pound businesses work. They create something that a customer wants and they sell it over and over and over again. And customers, because it ticks the boxes, customers buy it again and again. And if enough people do that, you've got yourself a pretty decent business.
There you go. Well, we'll finish. We'll finish there. We'll finish there. But we're not going to finish there. We're not going to finish there. Okay. Let's say you've got this idea. You've done your waiting list. People have told you they want it in blue. Talk me through the capstone pitch structure, because that fits in next, doesn't it?
Sort of. There comes a point where you need to start going to groups. So when you're launching a business initially, you tend to be communicating with people one-on-one. Even when you're sending direct messages, it's one-to-one communication. So there's a lot of just interacting with people one at a time. Once you want to scale up, by definition, scale is where you start talking to big groups of people. It's where you're trying to communicate to large audiences of people and have a message that resonates with a lot of people. So entrepreneurs have to do a few things that are a little bit hard when they're scaling. They have to communicate with groups of people rather than one-to-one. They also have to enroll people into new ideas. By virtue of the fact that you've got a new business, there's some sort of a new idea that you're presenting people with. You're presenting people with something they haven't thought of or that they haven't had access to before. So this is called pitching, where you're pitching people, to do something. So, you want the beauty of entrepreneurship is that our big primary weapon that we have as entrepreneurs is our pitch. So if you think about how often entrepreneurs use the pitch, they use it to raise money. They use it to get employees to join the team. We pitch for what we want. It annoys me. People kind of think there's some sort of, secret to entrepreneurship. Largely, we just go out and pitch for what we want. It's like, oh, how did you get the money to get started? I pitched for the money to get started. I talked to, 140 investors and 12 of them went ahead. How did you get that person to join your team? I said, quit your job and come and join my team. They're like, what do you expect that people just magically show up? Of course you're going to have to pitch people. So if our weapon as an entrepreneur is the pitch, we have to have a sharp weapon. We got to sharpen that weapon up so that it's ready for battle. So a great pitch is sharp. So how do we sharpen it up? There's a few key areas that we sharpen up. So we call it capstone. Clarity, right? Can we clearly define what is the idea? Authority. Why the hell should I listen to you? Why should you listen to me? What gives me any business talking about this? What's my authority? Problem. What problem are we trying to solve in the world? Solution. How have we approached this solution? How do we solve it? Then the T can stand for one of two things. It can either stand for the why, which is the big vision, or the traction, which is what have we done so far? What have we achieved? So certain pitches need a big vision. They need this is the big why. Other people that you pitch to, they need to know where are you at in the roadmap, traction. So I make a choice. Do I want to pitch the why or do I want to pitch the traction? And then opportunity. What's the opportunity for the person? Come and join the team. Invest your money into this. Become a supplier. Become a distributor. Do a joint venture partnership with us. So that's the opportunity. Next steps is what do we need to do next? And then the emotion or the essence at the end is leave people on a high. Make sure you leave people feeling reconnected with the essence of what you do or the emotion of what you do. Don't finish with next steps. Don't finish with a to-do list. Finish with a big uplifting end of the pitch. So I always build my pitches around the capstone method. and that way I've got a very sharp, well-produced pitch. And this is for everything. If I'm pitching someone to quit their job and come join my team, I mentally I capstone that. And if I'm pitching a product, I capstone pitch it. If I'm pitching for investment, I do a capstone pitch for that.
And I like the way actually you just dropped in there as well. It works for things like suppliers and distributors and franchisees and anybody you want to get on that journey. It's still within that pitch process, isn't it?
It really is. One of the differences between a real deal entrepreneur and someone who's just running a business is how often are you pitching. So I see people who have been in business for 20 years, but the last time they pitched was 19 years ago. And I go, well, why do you think you deserve to earn more than just a manager? Like, let's just take a traditional business. In most traditional businesses, I can hire a manager for 30 grand, 30,000 pounds. 3 or 4 grand a month, I can hire a manager. If I have a pub down the road that is open till 2 o'clock in the morning and is full of nightmare problems every single day, the person running that might be on 36,000 a year. So when people say, "Oh, I'm not earning enough in my business," it's like you're not behaving like an entrepreneur. You're not behaving like a CEO. You're not behaving like some highfalutin person. You turn up and do the work every day. If I wanted to hire someone to replace you, it'd cost me about 35, 40 grand a year. So why should you earn more than 35, 40 grand a year? What? Because you started the business 10 years ago? Who cares? So one of the ways that we know that we're in entrepreneur mode is that we're out pitching for stuff. We're pitching. That's the high value work, right? It's pitching things into existence. It's enrolling people into a movement. I love that movie Braveheart, where he has to ride his horse across to all the clans, and he has to unite the clans, and he has to pitch them into joining him. And then they go onto the battlefield, and they all say, "Oh no, we're not having this," and they decide to ride away. And he says, "Hold up 1 second, sons of Scotland, you can run and you may live, or you may fight and you may die." Right, but he gives them the pitch. He says, you're better off dying on this battlefield. This is what you want to do. You don't want to be laying in your bed regretting this moment. So he gives them, in that moment, he gives them a pitch. He enrolls them into a new behavior. He gets them doing something they wouldn't have otherwise done. It's a great kind of illustration of pitching. Your job as an entrepreneur is to roam around, enrolling people into your battle, and keeping them on the battlefield.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. We're all the rest of Leeds now going to be covered in blue face paint, screaming at each other. Something obviously we're talking about entrepreneurship a lot. Do you believe anybody can be an entrepreneur?
I believe anyone can be on an entrepreneurial team. I define an entrepreneurial team as kind of less than 150 people, direct report to a founder. Would be entrepreneurial team, really kind of like juggling things into existence. It's the really entrepreneurial part is those first 10 people who kind of get something off the ground. You're doing a lot of innovation work and all of that sort of stuff. For a business to get off the ground, you need a few different personality types who work together. So you've got the visionary who gets a lot more credit than most. But they're pretty useless without the other personalities. So I'm a founder and I'm a visionary type founder. Everyone wants to kind of give me a lot of credit, and let's take ScoreApp, for example. In the first 3 years, I think we hit about 35 million valuation, super successful business, recurring revenues, clients all over the world, winning awards, all that sort of stuff. A lot of people go, "Oh, Daniel, you're brilliant. You're amazing." Well, not really, because Steve Oddie is the actual brains of the operation. I'm just the mouthpiece. So I'm the visionary founder who said, "Wouldn't it be cool if we could do this?" Steve's the guy who said, "I can actually do this." So he's the CTO who builds the technology and puts together the dev teams and has the daily huddles and stand-ups with all the teams. And I just roam around bumping my gums on podcasts. Talking about whatever pops into my head. So Steve is the real brains behind it. So his personality type is the implementer personality. He's the technologist. He's the person who makes things happen. behind the scenes for me, I've got a guy called David, who's my CFO. He's, financial forecasting. He's working with when I find a new investor who wants to invest, David actually onboards them and makes sure that they're clear about the whole plan, and he's created that financial plan. I've got someone on my team who's just come into the new role as the chief operating officer. So Zara's just joined our team. Ever since Zara's been with us for the last 3 months, I haven't had to worry about a thing when it comes to the operations of the business. So you ask, can anyone be an entrepreneur? Can anyone be a visionary founder? No, probably not. There are people who are better. The people that comes very naturally to them, and some people it just doesn't naturally come to them. But anyone can get close to a visionary founder and actually backfill like crazy and do the work of becoming a valuable business. Anyone can be very early stage in an entrepreneurial team and get shares in the business. Anyone can negotiate equity in a business and say, I'm gonna fill these gaps in exchange for equity. So that's definitely the case. And most people don't even want to do the bit that I do.
Yeah, I get that, and people talk about worker bees and people who make things move, and I've headed up a business, and I had people doing the hard work, and I did the easy stuff. I was standing on stage and waffling and doing stuff like that, and I think that also leads to there's your book about it, but let's just talk about KPIs, key person of influence, because that is sort of rolled up in that whole entrepreneur, leader, founder thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
So let's just dig into that, because I think from what you're saying, I think you can be an entrepreneur, but to be a real leader, you have to be a key person of influence, really, don't you?
Yeah, the markets are very noisy now. There's we can all, like, it used to be that if you had a business in Leeds, there was no noise coming from Birmingham, or there was no noise coming from Los Angeles. There's no noise coming from New York. But now your customers are hearing about stuff from all over the world, from any number of different solution providers. They're hearing about software and services and products and all sorts of stuff. So you need to get cut through. And the problem is today is that the only way to get cut through anymore is the founder talking about the business themselves. People don't want to hear a paid actor. They don't want to hear, they don't want to hear someone who's like just, a spokesperson. No one pays attention to a faceless brand. No one wants to, follow a Twitter account that's just a company logo. None of that stuff works. None of it gets any cut through. We want to hear from the CEO or the founder. We want to hear from the leader. We want someone who's front facing. We want the Elon Musk. We want the Richard Branson. We want those kind of people to be speaking about the business, telling us about the business, demoing the products, talking us through it. That's what people expect now, and they don't respond to anything else. I'll give you some examples. Every single football team, Premier League football team combined, has about 250 million followers on Instagram. Cristiano Ronaldo, one player, has 650 million followers. So essentially people like people much more than they like brands. And you'd think of all brands, football clubs would have a lot of followers, but no, football players have a lot more. You take you take Tim Cook. Tim Cook has twice as many followers on Twitter or any of the platforms as Apple. So people follow Tim Cook more than they follow Apple. It's just, and Tim Cook is a deep introvert. He doesn't want to be on that stage, but he knows that he has to be on the stage if he's going to be the CEO of the company.
I totally agree with that. Totally. But the thing is, and people listening to this going, "Hey, I'm not Tim Cook. I'm not Ronaldo. I'm not Kim Kardashian. I'm not anybody. I'm just a bloke running a business." And it's still relevant to those people. It's still relevant to those people as well, isn't it?
Let me pause you there. What you've just described is a pitch. You've just pitched something. And the pitch that you just pitched on behalf of someone is, I'm not going to be someone special. I'm not going to be an interesting person to listen to. I'm not of interest. I'm not a good speaker. I'm not interesting. Now that's a pitch, right? That is actually a pitch. So I have this saying, you get what you pitch for, right? You get what you pitch for. So if you're going to pitch, I'm not worth listening to, okay, No one's going to argue with you, right? So the first thing is you got to sit there and say, wait a second, do I really want to keep pitching that? Like, do I want to pitch that I'm not worth listening to? Or do I want to pitch, actually, I've got some ideas about how things work. I've spent the last 15, 20 years figuring stuff out, and I want to share that with more people. You can't have it both ways. You can't say, I'm a little business in Leeds and I don't like talking to anyone and I'm just going to hide my head in the sand. And also, I want to get highly paid and I want to have a business that grows and scales and exits and all of that sort of stuff. I'm sorry. We're all grown-ups here. You either run on the pitch and play full out or you lose the game. That's it. There's your options. Now, does it work every single time? No. Sometimes you face people who are better than you. Yep, that's definitely the case. Sometimes you get kicked in the shins. However, a surefire way to lose every single time is to not run onto the pitch and play.
Yeah. And I say this a lot, JFDI most of the time, but also, what's the worst that can happen versus what's the best that could happen. And it's so outweighed one way or the other that it actually makes it stupid not to do it.
Yes. Yeah. Worst case scenario is you stay where you're at.
Yeah.
And that's guaranteed.
Yeah. I've got a small business with 2 staff and a turnover of 100 grand. Fine. But if I go for it and, try and be a key person of influence, guess what might happen?
Yeah. Well, here's the good thing. The good thing is that you got 100 grand of revenue to lose and 1.9 million to gain. If you can get that business up to 2 million, you got 1.9 million of upside and only 100 grand worth of downside. And there's very low chance that you'll get rid of the 100 grand of downside. So it's all upside.
Yeah.
Just go for it.
And okay, so I'm feeding you this one, Daniel. We're doing football. I'm playing it across the box. You've got an open goal. How do we become a KPI? What are the 5 Ps? How can we do it?
Oh, if only someone had written a book on how to become a key person of influence. If only there was a framework or a methodology that had been documented in 2010 and over 100,000 people had read the book and applied it to get the results. The 5 Ps: pitch, publish, product, profile, partnership. So we're pitching ideas, we're publishing ideas onto platforms or books. We're creating products and signature products and product ecosystems. We're raising our profile by getting onto other people's platforms. And we're doing joint ventures and partnerships. So those are the big 5: pitch, publish, product, profile, partnership. Now, we have done this with thousands of businesses now where we've just got them focused on those 5 Ps. And in every circumstance where someone applies this method, they radically increase their stance as a key person of influence. They raise their profile, they get more business, they get more inbound inquiries. I talked about direct power and indirect power. Indirect power is more powerful than direct power. It starts with doing things directly, and then once you're doing joint ventures and partnerships and you're on other people's platforms and building profile, you tap into this indirect power, which is like second and third order consequence, and that's where the business just floods. And if you focus on getting a few things right at the beginning, and then you build this personal brand, suddenly the thing takes off. Using ScoreApp again as an example, we laid these foundations early in 2020 and 21. We then started doing joint ventures, partnerships, and profile building. And fast forward to today. We now sign up a new customer every 4.5 minutes, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, round the clock. 8,500 new customers, more than 8,500 new customers a month, every single month, pouring in. We don't know where they come from. They come from countries all over the world. They find us. All of the foundations that we laid in the early days are now coming in. So in the early days, I'm direct messaging people one at a time. Now, 8,500 people a month sign up, and I have no idea where they're coming from.
Amazing. We've mentioned this book that somebody wrote about key person of influence. There will be a link in the show notes to that. There's actually a webinar next week which I'm signed up to, so I'll put a link to that one in there as well. Cool. Before we carry on, I want to talk to everybody about the Leeds Business Podcast Fair Deal. The Leeds Business Podcast Fair Deal has 2 sides to it. My side of it is every week, free of charge, I bring you inspirational, motivational, fascinating guests totally for free. Your side Mr. and Mrs. Listener and Viewer, has two parts to it. Part number one, recommend this podcast to one other person you feel will get benefit from it. And part number two, give this episode a thumbs up or a positive review. That's it. That's a Leeds Business Podcast fair deal. Daniel, sound like a fair deal?
Sounds like a great deal. How did you come up with that?
I stole it from, it was partly from a training course and partly from somebody else's podcast.
It's a good deal.
There you
It's
go.
a very good deal.
It's a very good deal. You can borrow it if you want. So we've gone out, we've done the KPI method, the key person of influence. And it's interesting actually, because in my previous life, before I did this, I ran a business, scaled it and grew it and exited. And I've realized I did all of those things. I didn't realize I was doing them, but I can see now how they all contributed to what we did. And it's just, as I was reading through and when I was reading this, it all I can say, it works,
You're not the first person to say that. I've had many people who, when they look at the methodology, they go, oh, that's actually how we did it.
Yeah.
Even Stephen Bartlett, he came and said, hey, all of these steps, I've done all of these steps. I didn't know I was necessarily doing them, but, I've hit all of these steps.
Now, we've mentioned the book, and you have a very interesting view of, I know obviously some of your books are paid for, but you have a very interesting view of giving books away as well as a gift. Tell us why you do that and why people should do that.
Well, I think that my time's too valuable to be spending time selling a £10 book. But what I would rather do is just give the book away. And the book's job is to sell what we do, right? So the book's job is to go be my ambassador, to be my salesperson. Here's the funny thing, Phil. How many salespeople have you hired in your career?
Not an enormous amount.
Are we talking dozens?
Yeah, single figures. Probably single figures.
Okay, so I've had a lot of salespeople on my teams over the years, and look, a good salesperson comes in at like 50, 60,000 a year typically. I've always had this cheeky thought of like, I could give away 10,000 books for that, and I'd probably get the same result. Right? So I've always thought the book is just a great salesperson. It's if you take let's say less of a salesperson, more of a business development manager. A BDM is going to cost 50 grand. If I print up 10,000 copies of a book, that's going to be about 50 grand or less. So I've always just had this thought of like, you know what, I can circumvent the whole process, just give away 1,000 books a month. And I get pretty much the same BDM experience or result. So I just think of the book as my business development manager.
Right. And books don't want holidays, they don't have time off sick, they don't fall out with other books.
No one poaches your books.
Fantastic.
No one gets your book to go and work at their company.
Yeah, absolutely.
Books don't take your ideas and then run off and start their own competitive business.
Books don't want 10% of the business when you start.
Yeah.
But
so the book.
Go on.
Well, the book is all your best thinking. It's your intellectual property. It's your case studies, testimonials. All of that's in one place. The book is there to be that central place where all the ideas and the insights and the case studies, they're all in one place. It's an amazing culture document. It reinforces culture with your team. One of the things that we do with all the new employees is that in week one, we ask them to read the book. We pay for them on company time, read the book as one of the things that you need to do. That creates an alignment straight away. People completely understand the business and the background and all the key ideas. So it's great for culture. It's great for building relationships. If you sign up a client, you give them a book. If you haven't signed up a client, but you want to, you give them a book. You want to do a joint venture or a partnership, you give them a book. Yeah.
Fantastic. And that feeds into your product ecosystem, doesn't it? And I think, in simple terms, a lot of people see this as a marketing funnel, but you call it a product ecosystem, don't you? This is step one of your product ecosystem.
It's a little bit different than a marketing funnel. A marketing funnel is about like badgering people with messages over and over until they buy. And if you're really good at a marketing funnel, you can do that in an elegant way. So you've got a landing page, and then you got email sequences, and I'm going to map out 76 emails over the next 12 months and wear you down. And if you say yes to this, then this sequence hits you, and if you click on this button, this sequence hits you. So if you think about marketing funnels being kind of mostly landing pages and emails, product ecosystems are a little bit different. These are actually things that deliver value, but at the same time as delivering value, you're building some trust. So for example, I went to Los Angeles, and my friend took me to the Porsche 911 driving center. And I kind of thought to myself when we were going there in the car, I thought, a bit of a waste of time. I have zero real passion for Porsches. I'm not interested in Porsche 911s all that much. It'll be fun, but I kind of had this view of like, I've got other things I could be doing. I don't necessarily want to drive a car around a track, whatever. We'll do it. Why not? Anyway, I go and sit through the Porsche experience where they teach you about the car and they tell you a bit about the brand and the history in a really fun way. And then you get in the car and you start driving around the track following a professional driver. 90 minutes later, sign me up, right? I do not want to leave this experience without having the car, right? So suddenly you've got this emotional connection to the car. Suddenly you get it. You're like, oh, now I get it. Now I get why people are passionate about Porsches. So, the Porsche driving experience, I think, is $750. And the Porsche is $150,000. So, for 0.5% of the value of a Porsche, you're buying something that is a gateway drug to this. So that's that's a good example of a product ecosystem that even if that Porsche driving center was break even, they'd make money on the people who then go buy the Porsche.
Right. So it's proving the product. It's giving people an easy way in without spending the whole 150 grand. And obviously those numbers reflect whatever people's own businesses are.
If I go to my book, for example, if I was to try and spend $50,000 on ads, just badgering people about who I am and I'm Daniel Priestley, buy my stuff. That would probably have, I don't know, I don't think it would have a great result. If I just print up a bunch of books and give them to sensible people and give them to people who are business owners, that's going to be just so much better. The credibility, the authority, the fact that it strikes people as a gift as opposed to marketing, that sort of stuff. So essentially most businesses, they need to have 4 products: gift, product for prospects, core offering, product for clients. So the gift and the product for prospects are the get to know you products, and the core business is the main central product, and the product for clients is the recurring revenue, ongoing subscription type products, the lifetime value products.
Okay, so let's and again, I'm sure the people listening go, "Oh, that's not going to work for my business. I only do insert normal business." Let's say I've got, I know we've used the example, Bill. I don't know why it's in my head. I've got a dry cleaning business. Okay, take me through that product ecosystem.
So if I owned a dry cleaning business, not that I would, but let's say I did, I'd probably identify pretty quickly that there are certain key relationships that pay significantly more than others. Let's say if I partner with a restaurant and I do all their uniforms, or I partner with a hotel and I do, certain dry cleaning on behalf of the hotel and stuff like that. So I would basically be saying, okay, the real business here is signing up hotels. So what am I going to do? I'm going to here's what I might do.
Sorry, I'll put you on the spot. I was putting you on the spot here, but go on.
Yeah, no, fine. No, I'll do it. I'll do it. Here's what I might do. I might find a little expert who has written a book about boutique hotels and how to run 5-star service for boutique hotels. I actually know someone who's done this, Joy Zareen. So I would hire Joy, and she's written a book on 5-star boutique hotel services and all that sort of stuff. So I get her, and I do once a quarter. She comes in and she does a talk on how to run a really great boutique hotel a boutique hotel. And what I would do is I'd do this at like $50 a ticket, and I would contact all the hotels in all the local area and bring them in to see this expert, and we'd host a little mini conference. And I'd position myself as the key person of influence who does dry cleaning for hotels, and that, we're really proud to have brought in this expert. And by the way, we'd love to talk to you about who does your dry cleaning. And I hope you get a lot out of today. And by the way, here's my diary. Let's make a time to talk about dry cleaning. And away we go. So I might do a quarterly event, which is all about having high standards and how to create really great impact with your guests, and then talk to people about that. So rather than promoting my dry cleaning, which is boring, I'm promoting something that is a product for prospects, an exciting, interesting first thing that then makes people go, actually, you know what? If this person cares about boutique hotels so much, this must be my commercial dry cleaner that I should be working with.
And then you get them
now
in.
You've put me on the spot.
Yeah, no, that's great.
That's the first idea.
And I can see that. And then you get them in, maybe do a discount trial, and then you go, right, we'll do a subscription model. So you pay £500 a month, and we'll clean everything you've got. And
dry cleaners, dry cleaners are naturally recurring revenue businesses anyway. Perfect.
Okay, fantastic. Well done. Good answer. And I think the thing for listeners is, and I think that proves, is all you have to do is think a bit cleverly, a bit more laterally, and it's applicable to everybody's businesses. They can put this in place for every, whatever their business is, can't they? It just needs a bit of. It's going back to what you said. It's the hard work. You've got to think about it.
Are you an entrepreneur, or are you a dry cleaner manager?
Yeah.
I can hire a dry cleaner manager for $35,000 a year. I can't hire an entrepreneur; they're not for sale. Are you being an entrepreneur, or are you being a dry cleaner manager?
Yeah.
And the other thing too is, are you stuck in your ways, or are you open for innovation? Yeah. Because, the thing is that maybe the dry cleaning business that you run has 12 best practices that you've developed over the last 10, 15 years. You can package those up as a software package that other dry cleaning businesses all over the world can utilize. They sign up for your online portal. They access the best practices for running their dry cleaning business. They pay $29 a month for access to the portal. You sign up, 13,000 dry cleaners globally, and now you've got a multi-million-dollar business exit.
Fantastic. I hope there's some dry cleaners listening, and if you put this in practice, let me know. Me and Daniel want some shares. Now, every week on the Leeds Business Podcast, we do a how-to. And Daniel, tell us what your how-to is going to be, and tell us how to do it. And I know it's going to feature one of your softwares, but I'm going to allow you to do that.
Yeah, let's do a how to set up a scorecard campaign.
Okay, fire away. How do you set up a scorecard campaign, and what is it? What is a scorecard campaign?
So in 2015, I launched a scorecard called the Key Person of Influence Scorecard for people to benchmark their personal brand. 90,000 people filled it in. On average, people scored about 25%, meaning they had 75% improvement. What did you fill it in?
I scored 35.
Right now, isn't it amazing that when you score 35, you go, okay, I've got some of this in place, and actually, I've got 65 potential points to gain. So straight away, we've got you excited to work with us because you want to gain those extra points.
I'm excited because I'm better than average. That's all I'm excited about.
Yeah, exactly. You're already 10 points ahead. So when 90,000 people did this, we ended up generating tens of millions of dollars worth of sales, and it was the easiest sale we'd ever made. So when we had the sales team follow up with these, it was basically, hey, we see that you filled the scorecard in, you scored 25%. Out of curiosity, where do you want to get to? Like, where would you like to, where do you imagine? Everyone says, I'd like to be at least 70, 80%. And you say, great. So let us help you with that. We'd love to talk to you through what are some of the key things to do to improve that. Have the conversation. People are signing up, right? Super high conversions. It's effortless. It's frictionless. So all of that sort of stuff. So then we discovered that this methodology can work for anyone. Basically, you can take any business and put an assessment on the front end. You You say, are you ready to lose weight? Are you ready to have more cybersecurity protection? Are you ready to grow your business through hiring a good salesperson? Phil, what was your last business? What was the business that you sold?
We were the world's leading online comparison website for online bingo.
Okay, so are you ready to win at bingo? Test your bingo skills. So any of these online assessments, this is where people go, oh, I'll take a test. I'll see what am I, I'll test my bingo knowledge. I'll test my bingo skills. I'll test my bingo strategy. Take this assessment and test your bingo strategy to see if you're ready to get a better result than everyone else. So people take the assessment. They love taking the assessments. And almost as much as they love playing bingo. So we found that we could do this with coaches, consultants, therapists. That was all easy. Training businesses, that's easy. A lot of the time, technology-related businesses, that's easy. SaaS businesses. So essentially, these online scorecards, it leverages something called assessment-based selling, which is first you sell the assessment, and then the product or service improves the result of the assessment. No different to a doctor. First, you get an X-ray. You see you've got a broken arm. They then sell you the cast. You put your arm in a cast for 6 weeks, and then your arm's better. And then they can do an X-ray and see that it's better, right? So that's the power of the assessment-based selling. So there's a few key things in the blueprint here. You need to have a landing page that explains what is the assessment, right? What are we gonna be assessing? So you put all of that on a landing page. You normally say, this is how many questions, this is how long it will take you. It'll take, it's 15 questions, takes 2.5 minutes to do. You'll be measured on these 5 things. Often some testimonials. I got a lot out of this. I took the assessment and discovered 3 ways to improve, blah, blah, blah. So there's the assessment. The next part is the actual quiz questions. So answering questions. Typically between 10 and 40 questions is a good assessment. And then the final part is called dynamic results. Dynamic results is where people get special results based on how they answer the questions. So, a simple one would be like a traffic light system. You scored a red light, amber light, or a green light, or a thermometer. You're hot, warm, or cold. A speedometer. You're 55%. You're 65%. You're 100%. Right. So any of those types of things are a great way to then do the process of dynamically giving people results. Now, this used to take days to weeks to set up. And then artificial intelligence came along. So the way that you now set these up is you just go to scoreapp.com, create a free account, go through the AI setup wizard, and the AI will literally come up with a concept, create the quiz questions, create the dynamic content, put it all into a landing page, put it all into a questionnaire, and put it all into a dynamic set of landing pages. And then you just edit what you want to edit, add what you want to add, and then make it go live, and you've got yourself a quiz. You got yourself an assessment tool. And it's super, super easy. It's as easy as using either a template or the AI setup wizard, and away you go. You've now got assessment-based selling as a tool in your business.
And then I assume the conversion from the assessment is quite easy. You're at position A. Our product, our service can take you to position B. Where do I sign?
When do you want to get started?
Yeah. Great. And there will be a link in the show notes to that. I mean, again, just so much of what you talk about, Daniel, is so simple, and it is. And you this is why I love what you do, because it's just like you go, yeah, of course. It's just and it's so applicable across lots and lots of different things.
It is, yeah.
One final thing I just want to pick your brains on. You talk often about lifestyle businesses and performance businesses, and that step from wilderness to lifestyle and the desert and the next bit. Just talk us through that, because I think it's important for people to understand where they are on that plan of the life of a business. Because there's an interesting point you talk about having 12 employees, then 13, and when it all falls apart. Just explain the concept, and then people will understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah, the entrepreneurial journey is very predictable, and it's it really, the two axes, if you were to plot it on a graph, you've got how many people are on the team, because the dynamics change as you put more people on the team. And then what is the revenue per person? So a business that's doing 500 grand of revenue with 10 people is very different to a business that's doing 1 million with 10 people, or 2 million with 10 people. So if I was to say I've got 10 people and we're doing 3 million of revenue, that team is partying, that team is getting bonuses, that team, on your 1 year anniversary, you get a Mont Blanc pen worth £500. 3 years in, you get a watch from Omega, right? Like
Yeah.
that team is a very different team to the team that's 10 people and they're doing 300 grand, right? They're commiserating all the time. So basically, if you essentially say how many people are on the team and what's the revenue per person, I can pretty much tell you exactly what that business is like. There's a map. So you start out in the wilderness, you're just trying to survive, and then you become a boutique. You've got 3 to 12 people, and at 3 to 12 people, you now have a team dynamic going on. Wilderness is 1 or 2 people. 3 to 12 is a boutique. Lifestyle boutique is 3 to 12 people with really healthy revenues and some profits in there. Normally, those businesses run on media, technology, intellectual property, data. Those are the really kind of high revenue per person businesses. A classic example is my mate Ali Abdal. Ali's got about 10 people on the team. They do 5 million of revenue, 2.5, 3 million of profit. My goodness, what an electric environment to be in there. That's the lifestyle business. They can live and work from anywhere. He's a YouTuber. If you try and tax him too much money, he just moves to Malta, right? Super easy. Like those kind of businesses. Those businesses, they can be anywhere in the world. They're having a great time. They're in the new economy. So that's the lifestyle business. Then you hire 13, 14, 15 people. You're in this too big to be small, too small to be big phase. So if you just take the idea that a leader can really only have so many direct reports, so it's very normal that a leader needs a leadership team. So you need someone who's the CFO and the COO and the CTO and all this sort of stuff. But you can't afford that unless you've got a big base of people to work with. So as soon as you start trying to scale up the team, you need managers and leaders, but you can't afford managers and leaders. So you've either got too many direct reports and everything falls apart, or you've got too many managers and leaders and not enough people, so everything becomes unprofitable. So basically there's a chicken and egg kind of issue between 13 and 30 people. Too big to be small, too small to be big. Once you hit about 30 people, you can have 4 or 5 people on the leadership team. You can have 25 people on the actual, doing stuff team, developers, customer success people, all that sort of stuff. So now you're a performance business. So when you get to performance, this is where your business is actually saleable. This is where you make the real money through an exit. So when you sell a business, they typically want a few things, and you'd know this having sold a business. They want to have a core team who are not going to leave when the founder leaves. So they need to have some people on the team. They want to have proprietary intellectual property, some sort of proprietary asset that the business has. So there's something special about the business that's hard to replicate. And they want to have recurring revenues that they can forecast into the future. So those are the big 3. If you want to really tick those boxes, you want to have 30 people on a team. You want like 60, 70% of the income to be recurring revenue. And you want to have a lot of intellectual property on how you build the business, how you grow the business, how you deliver to the customers. All of that needs to become software, intellectual property, data, all of those types of proprietary assets. So ultimately, you get to this performance phase, you put all that in place, and then the business is worth tens of millions, and you can exit and then go speak at schools, and they ask you what car you drive.
We didn't do the desert business. We got to the lifestyle boutique, and again, amazingly, we had a team of 12. We were on there. We were on 12, and again, you're saying it now. We had moats. We created the industry awards, so we had annual awards. We created the industry annual report. So we had those. So we had everything apart from a management team. We had the proprietary. And again, it's listening to you, I'm going, yep. And it's just so right, and it is so predictable.
How big was the company that bought you?
It was a PLC.
So ultimately, they're a performance business,
Yep.
and they just saw this as a hole that they could just plug this in. They've got the senior leadership team, and they went, "Oh, that's a nice business unit. We'll just hoover that business unit in, and that just plugs straight into our PLC. Happy days." And they probably immediately started making money off the back of that business, even after they bought it, because they had other assets to leverage. They
Yep.
could leverage your assets against their assets and vice versa. So it made total strategic sense. Whatever they paid you, they would have started making money back straight away, and
Yep.
and happy days.
Yeah, we had recurring revenue, ticks all those boxes. We got to that optimum.
Yeah.
We got to that optimum 12.
Had you gone any bigger, you would have had to get all the way to 30. You'd have had to cross the desert if you wanted to go bigger than 12.
Yeah, it was just optimum.
Perfect.
So before we finish, and I know we're tight on time, Daniel, we could do another hour, but I won't. I know you've got other things to do. Before we finish, and everybody who regularly listens will know this, we always ask our guests to give a shout out to another Leeds business. Now, Daniel being an Aussie and being based down in Mayfair in London, he's that posh. He wouldn't come up north, you see, because he doesn't come up north. He doesn't know any Leeds businesses. So who are you going to give a shout out to of a Leeds business, Daniel?
Did you know that the name Priestley hails from Leeds? I'm Leeds stock. I'm from Leeds originally. The DNA is from Leeds. And if you actually look around Leeds, there's all sorts of Priestley references. There's Joseph Priestley, the famous physicist and scientist. There's several Priestley property businesses. I think there's a Priestley restaurant or bakery or something like that. So I'm going to give a shout out just purely and simply. Find a Priestley business and go and deal with my distant relatives and cousins.
That's absolutely brilliant, Daniel. Thank you ever so much. And Daniel, I think I can say I don't hate you now.
Relax. I can relax. Finally, I can sleep at night, Phil.
Thank you very much indeed.
Cheers, mate. All the best.
Thanks for listening to this episode. I hope you found it interesting, inspiring, and of use. To make sure you don't miss out on any future episodes, please subscribe to the show. Go on, do it now. Do it now before you go off and do something else. Thank you. Much appreciated. Oh, and don't forget our fair deal. See you next week.